All right. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for coming out to this one. My name is Alex Butler. My background, I'm with Master Control. I'm in product development. I manage the LS Apps products. So we have bill of materials, projects, PDM connector. There's a few others that we have in the works with that as well. So I got a warning letter. I'll admit it. Before working at Master Control, I worked for a company for 3 years. I was in product development there. We were manufacturing orthodontic devices. The company was a large dental product manufacturer. Good company, great job, good experience. So let me ask, has anybody in this room dealt with a warning letter or a warning letter follow-up remediation? Awesome. Good times, right? So Lily, you did. I didn't know that.
Here at
No, right. Not at Master Control. All right. Well, we've been in the trenches. We know each other's pains. Anybody in medical device, orthodontics, anything like that? We have the FDA in the room. All right, I can tell you anything. All right, so we got a warning letter. This was my life before the warning letter. It was just fun. Every day came into work, smiling, happy, good times. Life after warning letter. This is a very real picture. This was us the night before Thanksgiving on 2013. We knew we had a 483 coming. We knew we were probably going to get a warning letter. And we were working late every night that extended weekend, basically rewriting our quality system. And I'll get into that a little bit more. And then for about a year, we were working on our remediation plan with the FDA. And I'll get into the details of that. So here's our warning letter. It came out a few months later. A little bit of background. We had a complaint issued against one of our products, a Class 2 product. That came up in our audit. They wanted to investigate the complaint because one of our reactions to the complaint was we were going to release a new product to get revealed. We were going to enhance it. We were going to use a new supplier, a new design. We were going to basically replace it. So we've been in testing with that. We filed for the 510K. We had done what the FDA told us were clinical trials. We've been defining them as preference testing with doctors, where they were installing, these were aesthetic brackets for your feet, installing, removing, and installing, removing, which we thought was pretty innocuous. We thought we were okay there. They got us for incomplete verification and validations, which we'll get into a little bit more as well. Our design control procedure did not include all the requirements set forth in 21 CFR 820. So we had a pretty robust design control procedure. I would say some of the issues with it was the organization didn't know what it was. So when we actually updated our quality system, there were some pretty big enhancements to that, but overall, we did have a basic understanding. It's just a small group of the company had the understanding. So I'd kind of like to say, going through this presentation, there may be some things in here that are like, well, no doubt. I get that. I get the regulation. I get the policies. But I would say challenge your understanding. I would say challenge your understanding from a company standpoint. You may understand this stuff very, very well. And I'd be interested, let's make this interactive. I'd like to hear some more stories and ask questions as we go. Every bullet point up here, I can give a more story for going through this project. But challenge your assumptions from the company level. Don't assume everybody understands this stuff. People who might be put in front of an auditor, people who are putting documents into your system. So I kind of think of it from that perspective. So we got busted for running our verification on prototypes manufactured on unqualified equipment. Again, we thought we were doing preference testing. The patients weren't going home with these, but we were actually installing these brackets in patients' mouths. A little extra background on that. It's really the adhesive on the tooth that could cause some damage other than actually swallowing the device. So we thought we had trusted doctors, partners, orthodontists throughout the country. We had an internal orthodontics office. We thought we were doing everything by the book. And we had very smart people running these tests as well. The incomplete 510K, we basically taken the design specs from our last version of brackets, because the actual designs and prescriptions weren't changing. We're changing the supply and we're changing a few other things here and there, basically to make the product better. But the actual spec of the product was spot on. So we ran a 510K off of specs from the previous years. Yeah, I didn't know we were out of compliance at that point. Looking back now, absolutely. We got the closeout letter later on in the year. We're friends with the FDA again, but you can be certain that all these points come up in any inspection from now until forever. So. Our response, and I apologize, at least when I'm looking at this, it's kind of fuzzy. So we did an audit and a gap analysis on basically all of our DHFs from 1998 onwards. So a total of 23 files. We redid 9 full DHFs. So these are products in the market released. We're managing complaints and CAPAs and whatnot. But these were good, proven products. But we said, well, we've done this analysis on our new quality system. These design history files don't come up to our current standard now. We're going to review these. So I was given the projects to run a handful of these, saying, take this product from research through development through release, just like it was a new product. And some of the products we did actually pull out of markets until we did that. Our general response going into this was we were going to go very big in our responsibility. We wanted to make sure that we just went above and beyond, that they'd be in looking at the letters and the correspondences along the way. They were very happy with our response. Not very happy that we got to that point. So we did a full document audit, replaced documents, design controls. We looked at our tech files for ISO, and then just remediated everything we could. They did suspend some current 510K filings. Some of that was proactive on our part. They did suspend the one that we had applied for off the previous part, the one that actually triggered this line of questioning. So they're happy with us again. We got some 510Ks in process. We brought in some external consultants. So Pathwise, the lady I worked with, she was an FDA auditor for 18 years. And much of this comes from her information to us. So I spent a lot of time with her, a lot of time with some other consultations and legal teams and whatnot just over that last year. My time with Master Control, I'm extremely interested in making our product, well, number one, you don't get this far, but just making the process simple. Your people understand it. They don't have to be as high level of an FDA expert as we all are or claim to be. So I love the interaction. Feel free to reach out to me afterwards. I love to talk this stuff with people. So again, we brought in the FDA consultants. We brought our training up to speed. We were transitioning from a paper company to digital. We're going with Agile. This is an interesting time for companies. I'm sure you've all experienced a degree of this. Just everything seems to be up in the air. This is a tough time to get people on board with the new mechanisms to get documents through and get compliance and whatnot. So we were kind of dealing with that beforehand. I don't know how recently you've all been on paper systems, but we just had a giant table from here to the back wall. We had all of our change orders, bill of materials printed out on, and I was just carrying bundles of paperwork just all over the place, just getting signatures all the time. It was a nightmare. But it was kind of the devil the company knew. They were comfortable with our system. We started to implement Agile, and things kind of got a little bit crazy. Did some other areas of the business. Process validations, we were obviously weak there. We had its own departments. It was needed. It wasn't part of our warning letters, it wasn't part of the observations, but we just recognized we needed to do this. We didn't understand it. Supplier SCAR system put into place. We did have a supplier system that just wasn't up to speed. Supplier and internal audits need help quite a bit more frequently. And then we look for very specific people to kind of fill in our gaps where we felt we were kind of weak. So this made for a very, very busy day. Avoid this at all costs. So the trend for warning letters, they're going through them. They're out there. The FDA is very savvy. It was very interesting sitting with the auditors. They know the questions to ask. They know when you're handing them a threat. They know where to pull to kind of find the dirt underneath the rug, so to speak. But I suspect that this average is going to be pretty on par with 2015 as well. Quite a few warning letters this year. One thing that we tried to do, and we kind of failed, when we realized we didn't have the documentation readily available, we tried to piece a story together with meeting minutes. And looking at, so if you just take a look at these questions, just kind of ask this for yourself rhetorically for your own company. What is the general effectiveness of your company meetings overall? I think in general for any company in any industry, it can be pretty weak. It can be pretty weak. Effectiveness of follow through on the action items. Are you utilizing meetings, specifically design meetings? Because we were trying to force meeting notes from just whoever had a note from years before I even started to say, look, we did this. We had design reviews. It's in so-and-so's meeting notes. I haven't worked here in 7 years. And I felt we were kind of doing design reviews as kind of a checklist. Hey, let's all meet. Yeah, the project's going forward. See what happens. Or are your meetings, are they actually moving the project forward? So just because I manage the projects module, just because I actually do this at Master Control, I just wanted to show you just one brief project on this. So I use our projects tool to manage all the action items in my meetings. I have recurring meetings every week. I've actually just created a project for my weekly meeting on Wednesday morning. I've quick approved it. It's released. It's mine alone. I put my action items in. I put the owners in. They're getting their action items through Master Control. It's awesome. I would have loved this. And this isn't how we designed the tool. This is how I'm using it today. I would have loved this in my product development in my former company. I just kind of did a rough compliance project in here and how that might look. One other thing I'm doing is when I open up a task, I break down my task. If I've got this phase 1 design review meeting, I actually open that up and drop my meeting notes in there. So I drop my meeting notes in there. I build out action items. They're all related to that point. I get to use the software to nag people instead of me walking their desks and asking them what the action item is. And it's kind of an ongoing list. I can look back over the project over months and months of these meetings and kind of see where we are. This is kind of, I just wanted to throw this in real quick, just got a few screenshots. If anybody wants to talk to me about that more down the road, if anybody's using the project, I'd love to talk to you. I think it's a very useful tool. Anyway, if we had this in our design review meetings, if we had anything close to this, it would have been a lot better outcome. We got into a lot of complaints. Again, a complaint is what triggered this. I've gone to a couple conferences and I've been in a few trainings with the FDA on complaints, CAPA, and management and whatnot. Really, one of the number one culprit in terms of complaint observations, and observations are going to vary drastically, but the FDA can very effectively look at this and say, you didn't designate the complaint here. You didn't understand the cause. What is your procedure to get through the cause? You may think something is a big deal and it's a little deal. You may overlook it, like it should have gone to this is another interesting point on MDRs is absence of reports. Data can create trending that could trigger an audit. So is your company too perfect in terms of MDRs? Are you submitting enough? I would say as a general rule, probably more is better than less from the FDA perspective. Make sure you have a good process in place to designate something becomes a habit, designate something becomes a habit, and the appropriate documentation to follow up on that. Then is your company finding and managing trends? Are you actively looking for your own trends? Don't let the FDA come in and say, you want to understand your trends, you want to adjust to that. And then again, absence of data is a trend. Why do we not have, all of our other products have X amount of complaints on them. Why is this product, what's going on here? That is a point of observation we can dig into a little bit deeper. So investigator red flags. Again, this comes directly from the FDA, the presentation I was in this summer. This one is talking about war stories. Inadequate investigation because the sample is not received. You go to R&D, hey, where are we on this complaint? Well, it's fine, it's good. We don't have the sample, so I can't say for sure, but we're okay with it. We tested. We know the tolerances. No, that's no excuse not to investigate. The complaint not marked confirmed because there's no sample. Again, no trending, poor trend analysis. Minimizing complaints based on user error, shipping damage, etc. So that's, well, it looks like there's damage to the shipping passes. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe there's something more to it. Failure to file your field action report. Common misconception is that a problem must demonstrate a trend. You can have a pretty severe issue on a product if it's a one-off that needs full attention. So you may be looking for a trend. Treat each case as if it's you know, if it's critical until you can prove that it's not. So again, on MDRs, complaints, report what you know. So less fact-based data is better than what you can speculate, even when your speculation is supported by previous examples. So the example I put up here, we've got a problem shipping this product in humid climates. This came up with us all the time. It's shipping the product too hot, too humid, too cold, whatever the issue may be. Well, this is a result of that because that happens all the time. That's not adequate, or you need good documentation. Recalls, most are voluntary. I don't know. That was one thing I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. There's no legal requirement to report voluntary recalls to the FDA, but it says it there. You probably should. This is a big one. So I work with a lot of smaller companies in med device. I talk to a lot of smaller companies. But formally designate a department role. So does anybody work with a company 50 employees or smaller in this unit? This is a very common problem. For anybody who's been in a startup or whatnot, very, very common problem is, well, Alex basically runs this machine all day long, and his last half hour of the day he manages our compliance, or he's building out compliance documentation. Let's call him in here and talk to the auditor. It's probably better to say that I was the designated compliance manager, I was the designated manager. Another point on that is, really separate your SOPs and departments from complaints and CAPA. If you're going to mention in complaints where it goes to a CAPA, but have two very distinct processes going into it. And that's a big one for as well, as companies not understanding it as to at that point. So this is what I thought was extremely interesting this year, is in complaints collection, social media, and post-market surveillance of the products. So, anybody heard of the Kim Kardashian story? So she got on some social media deal, Instagram, I guess, and said, I feel a lot better. There was no increased risk to the baby. Thank you, Clegus. We love you. And then there was a link to their product claims, which is good and whatnot. Went out to 42 million followers, and they got a warning on really. So she's a paid spokesperson. They need to basically lay out all of the, we got to prove that there's no increased risk to the baby. So that's kind of interesting, but this raises a big point in compliance. Does your marketing department understand social media and compliance? We may challenge your assumptions. Do they? If they put up a site where they can get feedback on their products, and somebody who maybe managing complaints isn't even aware of this, is there a Facebook page? So what would constitute a complaint on a site like that? Marketing, just kind of in their silo, goes out and puts up a post for Declegus or Children's Costs or whatever it may be. What would constitute a complaint on that? So my kid doesn't like the new cherry flavor. Is that a complaint? I've got to be heads not a yes. The packaging is hard to get into. Is that a complaint? And I would argue if you put the forum up to collect feedback on your product, it is a complaint. If those comments were to show up on some forum you don't manage, you don't have a reasonable expectation to be monitoring your products on these sites, not necessarily. I don't think you have to really go in and say, well, you need to be aware of anywhere that this product was commented on. But if you put it out there, even these things that are very, very innocuous, yeah, you should probably have a procedure there to say, how do we handle and respond to complaints or the preference issue? How do we handle and respond to just the crazy 1 to 20,000 comments on there that's should be ignored, but you're giving them the forum, you're giving them the bullhorn to basically announce to the world issues that they have with your product. And then just an interesting fun fact. There is no safe setting on a computer to look for an image of Kim Kardashian. Don't even try. Especially not at work. We busted the filters. So FDAisms. I'd really like some feedback on this. So this is some of the no-duh moments that I kind of had learning this stuff, sitting at the FDA, but this is stuff we got beat up on. Anybody want to take a try at shall versus should? Go ahead.
I specifically asked.
Such a good auditor response, right?
He said they were smart.
Okay, interesting.
I've heard that shall is that you absolutely have to, and should you have to substantiate why you're not following it.
Yeah, and so I've had that conversation with auditors. So I think there's two ways to look at this. How you've written your procedure and how they've written their procedures. So you should understand it from your perspective, probably match the FDA, and I think that's close to the, so I was doing my research on this, and they did say shall is you are going to do this. You're not going to document your way out of it, and should is we should be doing this. Well, if we should be doing it and we don't, just document it. Why did you do it? It's not an excuse to, well, should, that's pretty soft, we're not going to do it. No, build a case why you're not going to. And I'm sure there's very specific circumstances in working with the FDA on the 510 where shall may not apply. But be very careful in your wording on your own procedures. Production equivalent. So we got beat up on this quite a bit. So we process these parts from our manufacturer, an approved supplier. We process them in R&D. Our R&D machinery was light years ahead of our production machinery. Our operators were light years ahead of our production operators. The products coming off these parts, the smartest people in the room said these are production equivalent. This is how our part is going to be when we're done. Let's ship it to doctors and let's do some preference testing. Not necessarily so. We didn't have the documentation in place to say this is why this is a production equivalent. This is what we said this is what we want our production equivalent to be when we get through the process of validating all of our machines, processes, and running parts, and testing, and that whole cycle. But we haven't done it. We did put safe product in the patient's mouths. The FDA does. And rightly so, they should. The data should help. The data, our validation processes, our verifications. So verification versus design validation. Very interested on this one. So many conversations in R&D and quality and regulatory debating this. Anybody want to take a swing at this one?
Our definition is verification shows that the product design conforms to the specification, and design validation shows that the product conforms to the user's needs.
Yes, that's very good. But you can see where people get very.
It can be intertwined.
It can be intertwined. There can be a lot of overlap there, and I mean, even a year after the warning letter, I was having debates with person we hired in charge of verification and validation. I don't think you're on the same page as R&D. You guys are debating this point over and over and over and over again. But yes, that was a very good explanation. Verification is basically your inputs going into a project, testing against your initial specifications. And then those outputs can trigger new inputs and specs refined and it's iterative and whatnot. Design validation is what we were doing when we shipped our parts out. So you like this, your assistants like this, your patients like this. It's basically saying, at the inception of this product, we said it had to do these things for our customers, and now we're going to go improve them. Yes?
Easy way to remember that. The FDA says, did you make it right? It's verification. And did you make the right thing?
Yes.
Is the validation.
That validation is often, I mean, it's an element of compliance, but it's also an element of business. Are we providing the customer with the right service? So I skipped over a few, sorry. Requirement versus specification. I'll give that one. So this is one we struggled. We struggled on inputs collection. Collecting inputs, testing, what is it? So requirements is the inputs going into it. Specifications are basically the output, how you define the product, tolerances with sizes, weights, whatnot. Deviations versus nonconformance. Deviation is planned. You said, we know machine A is down, we've got a plan in place for machine B. We're going to do additional testing to make sure it's production equivalent. We know we're dealing with this issue, we don't like it. We're going to document the heck out of it and put it in our files. Nonconformance is unique. And you need to document why you're still going to use this product, why you're still going to use this process, even though everything blew up in your face. So DHF versus DMR. I just thought this was kind of an interesting slide. Just kind of everything is within the DHF. DHF can have multiple products within, underneath the umbrella of kind of the parent product there. One thing I thought was interesting that I thought would be an interesting conversation is where do complaints live? From an FDA perspective, looking at if they come in and say, give me your DHF and you hand me the DHF and you've got your DMR and everything like that, where would you classify complaints on? Parents? I couldn't find guidance on it, I'll be honest with you. It's part of the DHF, is my understanding. But yeah, it's all part of that device. It's kind of the life cycle. So establishing, refining a quality system. Again, it was the night before Thanksgiving. The CEO bought us all steaks at 10 o'clock at night. We're all miserable, and we're going through our quality system, and what is wrong with this thing? Well, number one, nobody knew it. Nobody understood it, except a few key individuals. But understand the complexity of your products and processes. One of the things that really dinged us was taking a class 1 product through a process designed to release a class 2. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Well, I'm not going to do it. This is crazy. So it created a system where tribal knowledge kind of ruled over what our actual policies were. Like, this is crazy. We're going to take a toothbrush to this design review. What is your risk? If this product goes haywire and catches fire, is this for the patient? Is this a Band-Aid or is this a problem? Let's design our process. Let's understand risk. Back to that FDA slide, root cause, it goes for risk as well. Understand your risk for your procedures. The intended use, obviously, a Q-tip for over-the-counter use versus one used in surgical applications is going to be of a quality system. And do frequent internal audits. It's a pain. Everybody hates you. Let it happen. Invite it when it comes into your department, and push for it in other departments. Make sure people understand these things. Audit your SOPs. Take a look at your complaints files. Bring other people in to have these conversations. So evidence of a successful quality system, say what you were going to do equals you're in compliance with regulations. Do what you said you were going to do, you're in compliance with your procedures. Many of their procedures, I should say, are still to this day above and beyond the FDA's. They took a look at it and said, we failed at these over and over and over again, and we're going to hold ourselves to a higher standard. FDA probably wants that. Sure. And then prove it is just good, thorough, accessible, clean records. Just your documentation is there, you can get to it, you understand the story it's created. So what is an auditor's objective of that evidence of a good quality system? This comes directly from a week-long training session I spent with Kathwise, which was the auditor. She was an 18-year veteran of the FDA. There is a quality policy, and she can ask anybody, or he can ask anybody in the room, where is this policy? Have you read this policy? Show me some training records. It's there, it's available, people understand it. You've built a plan for when you do a new product. The plan is there, successful. Regular management review and supporting documentation that this is happening. the CEO, I just remember we were in a meeting, and it was we were arguing, debating, professionally debating, verification versus validation. This is like 9 months later. I'm like, you're the CEO. This is your company. We have to do this. No, we don't get to ship Friday night. We have to do this process. We'll come in over the weekend, but there's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. Oh, 5 minutes. Okay, sorry. I thought she was like,
Sorry.
I've got 5 minutes. Okay, I'll count it. He used the phrase, how did he put it? If anybody gets a scholarship to Crowbar College, it'll be me. Basically, he understood the risk he was taking. We said, sign a letter. If you want to do the risk, if you'll sign it, the director of R&D, a few other key people, awesome. You got your, so again, audits, procedures and instructions, supporting training records, they're always going to ask for that. Your clean feedback loop for post-market surveillance. Suppliers identified, qualified, audited, you know who they are. Process controls, complete, maintained, accessible, coherent, DHF. Prep for audit success. Understand your regulations. Understand at the most simple level what it is you're requiring. Make sure you understand that again. Make sure your company understands it. Challenge your understanding. So I worked with Ference back at Ultra, and that's why I've already picked on it. But we've passed every audit for 20 years. This is not evidence you're going to pass the next one.
Hey, for the record,
Yes.
I think a good thing to understand in this area is that you start getting, not seeing the forest for the trees.
Yes.
Because you live there, you see it every day. It's really important to bring in outside people.
Absolutely.
Professional.
Absolutely. Do you know your story? At management level, we're all in the quality industry. Do you know your product story from conception to observation? This is very important. Pay to be proactive. Get consultants in. This is kind of to your point. Do these audits. Just do it. It's better to have somebody you pay come in for $15,000 than the FDA come in and cost you $500,000, which is what they're saying is at a minimum is what it's going to cost to take care of it. And that's, yeah. FDA auditor is not your consultant. If I had time, I'd share war stories, but we're like, well, yeah, we did this wrong. How would you do it? No, don't ask. Just get through your audit, fix your system. Keep that guy out. We had 2 of those guys. One of the guys handed them documentation that they shouldn't be seeing. The other guy insulted our auditor. He was a very high-level R&D guy, and she could not grasp what we had done and why we had done it, and his body language started to change. And it finally got a point and said, Janet, I don't know why this is so hard for you. And I was just like, why is he in here? Why is this guy here? If you disagree with a regulation, it's not the forum. This isn't the forum to get on a political platform and debate with your auditor and regulation. They're there to enforce the law as written, not to change it. They really will. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. I really like this quote. Look at your SOPs. Look at your documentation. If you can't get it down to 2 sheets of paper, de-acronymize, is that a word? I just invented a word. Take acronyms out. I mean, there's standard things across, but we were throwing acronyms at our auditor, and she's like, well, in this industry, this means that. What does it mean to you? It's different. Simplify things. Be inspection ready. Just be ready to go. That comes from being proactive. You get an inspection? Awesome. Bring it on. We're ready. And the number one thing, and this was from the FDA, design and sell your quality system with the bottom line in mind. If anybody in this room can come up with a policy or a procedure to improve their processes that doesn't also impact them from savings, getting products to market sooner, let's have a conversation. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear it. This is how you sell your quality system, your compliance, to the executives, to the managers, to whatnot. There is no reason you shouldn't be doing this stuff. This is just good manufacturing practice. With that, I didn't think I could go that long. Are there any questions? Any comments? Yeah.
Well, I'm just working here, so you guys make sure you fill out your surveys.
Oh,
Online.
I'm way ahead of you. Session surveys. And then thanks for coming. If you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I love to talk about this stuff. I love to enhance our products, to ease these types of things. So.